Thursday morning, Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. And for me, it's a very, very, very sad Thursday morning. My name is Wale Scott. Welcome on the show. I've got Mukhail Tinubu. Mukhail, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a very sad morning for me, if you ask me. And we have nobody else to blame but the people who manage our sport. There's no... But I'll come to you after the story, really. Jumper Ruth Usoro, sprinter Favor Ofili, and 8 other Nigerian athletes were on Wednesday disqualified from the track and field events of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Now, aside Usoro and Ofili, others affected were Chioma Onyekwere, discus, Annette Echiwuke, hammer, Chidi Okezie, 4x400 meters mixed relays, Knowledge Omovo, 4x100 meters women, Rosemary Chukuma, 100 meters, Glory Patrick, 4x400 meters mixed relays, Yinka Ajayi, 4x400 meters mixed relays, Tima Godless, 4x100 meters relays. Nigeria accounted for 50% of the 20 disqualified athletes, with 10 athletes. Now, only 12 athletes in the track and field events are left in the Tokyo Olympics portal for Nigeria. The athletes left on the portal are Enoch Adegoke, Toby Amushan, Esse Brume, Chukwuebuka Enekwechi, Patience George, and Usherishe Ishekiri. Nathaniel Grace Nwokocha, Divine Oduduru, Ifeanyi Ojeli, Blessing Okagbare, and Imaobonk Uko. Nigeria was added to the list of countries with the highest doping risk by the AIU in March 2020. Nigeria, Belarus, Bahrain, Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, and Ukraine are the countries listed in Category A with high doping risk. Now, before this even happened in the first place, we're already on a list of high doping risk countries already.
I think it feels like every other day we're complaining and criticizing the the NFF. And it begs the question, do none of them take our sports seriously? Do they not understand the reputational damage that events like these cause us?
Let me buttress your point before you continue. Blessing Okagbare in a tweet, Frank will show us that now, in a tweet, blamed the management, the guys who manage this sport for all of this. She blames them in her tweet and says, only people who are passionate about this sport, only people who know how to manage the sport should be involved. Nigeria should understand that, listen, you can't continue to play politics with our sport. You can't continue like that. It doesn't work. Every time we do this, we're always talking about somebody is being compensated for doing well during the campaign period. It's always the issue. So most guys who are there don't have any passion for the sports, don't even know anything about the sports. They are only being compensated for doing well during one campaign or the other. I don't know. I think they'll get me that Blessing's tweet where she blames the managers and says they don't have any passion.
She's completely right. Passion, when you go to work every day and you strive with the utmost intention and passion to do better than you did yesterday, knowing that there are so many people who depend on you, depend on your role, then you're going to do better than every other day before. And it just begs the question, if these people are not qualified, if these people are not competent, and they're still being put into positions of authority to manage these sports, then do we have a hope at all to ever do better than we are doing currently? Because why is there not a screening process at our level before we ever go out into the international community? I mean, they say keep family problems within the family and resolve it before outsiders know. Why are we letting outsiders embarrass us like this? Because we're embarrassing ourselves in front of them.
But it's really sad because let's put all the blame on the management guys now. Let's look at the fact that didn't these athletes know that during the year you must get your doping tests?
These athletes, athletes all over the world.
This is Blessings. She said, I've said it before and I will say it again. If you don't know the sports are not passionate about it, the athletes will suffer. They have no homes, no business. There is, I can't really get to read it right, but she says that you have to be passionate about the sports. You have no business being there if you don't know anything about the sports.
You see,
the athletes tend to suffer really.
You see why the authorities have to bear.
She says they are busy fighting for overpower, exercising the pride over Puma. Yes, that's where the problem started from. Somebody brings Puma and says they will be our kits for the Olympics. And because there is a power tussle, ego tripping around, two people are fighting. They say they don't want his Puma. They will now go and bring AFA. Puma is a bigger brand.
Are we even going to be able to get Puma next time around when we're bidding for sponsors? And the reason why the authorities have to bear the brunt of it.
She says the sports system in Nigeria is so flawed and we athletes are always at the receiving end.
Yes. And, you know, they are the ones in front of the cameras. They're the ones we pin our hopes to. And regardless of what the authorities are doing, they're the ones we hope will somehow find a way to transcend the obstacles and limitations in their path. She's completely right. I mean, the reason why we have to blame the authorities, they have to bear the majority of the brunt, is because everywhere in the world, people will do whatever benefits them individually. Not least in a country like Nigeria, where some of these athletes, for them, this is an escape from poverty.
True that.
And they will do whatever it takes to win, to impress, and to live up to the pressures and expectations a nation is putting on them. It is up to the regulators, the authorities, to keep them in line, to keep them in check. That's why we have the rules. That's why we have the enforcers.
They are only politicians. They know nothing about it.
But then why are politicians running our sports?
They are being compensated for doing well.
There's nowhere else, no other area of the world outside of politics that people who are not qualified for it, people who are not qualified for technical work, are being given such responsibilities. You wouldn't go to a TV station, apply to be an on-air anchor, and not have to present years of experience on your resume, not have to present some form of qualification that shows that you understand the responsibility. These people behave as though they don't understand the responsibility. And even if they do, they behave as though they don't care about it.
This is now C18, so we'll go somewhere else today. Now, isolation and the absence of family and friends have taken a toll on athletes' mental health at the Tokyo Olympics, with some struggling to cope with the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic while carrying their country's hopes on the global sports stage. After a stunning exit from the women's gymnastics team event on Tuesday, Simone Biles said she felt she had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. That burden seems to have been excavated by a year of grief, loss and restrictions tied to the pandemic. Athletes have seen their pre-Olympic training disrupted by lockdowns and restricted access to athletic facilities.
Isolation and the absence of family and friends have taken a toll on athletes' mental health at the Tokyo Games, with some struggling to cope with the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic while carrying their country's hopes on the global sports stage. After her stunning exit from the women's gymnastics team event on Tuesday, Simone Biles said she felt she had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. That burden seems to have been exacerbated by a year of grief, loss, and restrictions tied to the pandemic. Athletes have seen their pre-Olympic training disrupted by lockdowns and restricted access to athletic facilities. Their families and friends also can't cheer for them in the stands in Tokyo, and their movements are heavily restricted. Biles, who also pulled out of an individual all-around competition on Wednesday, said, quote, "Usually you hang out in the village, all that stuff. It does suck when you feel the weight of the world. There are no outlets with the amount of training that we do." Gymnast Angelina Melnikova of the Russian Olympic Committee, who beat the United States to win gold in the women's team event, said it has been a, quote, "difficult road since 2019. Other athletes have also contracted COVID-19, either before or even during the Games, threatening to derail their years of grueling work toward the Olympics.
I think she's handled it beautifully.
But amid the stress and fierce competition, athletes like U.S. gold medalist surfer Carissa Moore are cheering Biles on for putting her mental health first.
That's hard to do in a world where people expect so much of you and have this idea of what success looks like. For her to take her power back and just be like, hey, this is what's best for me. This is what success looks like for me. That's really hard.
USA Gymnastics said Biles is being evaluated to see if she can take part in the individual apparatus finals next week.
Don't let's talk too much. Don't let's oversay it. Naomi Osaka has been vindicated.
You know what's interesting? The stats for people reporting mental issues, mental health issues, anxiety, depression during 2020 as a result of the isolation caused by the pandemic went up all around the world. And countries have been trying to battle that secondary consequence of the pandemic. So, but a lot of people, when isolations were mostly over in certain countries, when stay-at-home orders were lifted, when they left home, most of them did not have jobs that they had to return to, jobs that were in public sphere for people to consume and pressure and apply their own expectations of what should be deemed success. These athletes are facing a unique circumstance, something that most of us never have to. And the pandemic is still not over. Most of the isolation is still not over. They are still dealing with relative mental health brought on by these pandemic circumstances.
Now, I don't have to teach my daughters to become feminists. I don't have to. But one thing I must tell them is you are not a sex symbol for anyone.
Yes.
You are not.
Yes.
And so, but in the course of doing that, I must also tell them, you must cover up too. When you're going out, you can't go out almost naked. You must tend to cover up too. But you are not anyone's sex symbol. Female Olympic athletes around the world and in different sports are pushing for their clothing to become more inclusive and less sexualized. Now, female Olympic athletes are pushing back at outdated uniform regulations and demanding athleticism be prioritized over aesthetics. Many have been pushing for uniform changes in run-up to this year's Tokyo Games. The Norwegian beach handball team was fined for wearing shorts during their bronze medal match in the European Beach Handball Championship instead of the regulation bikini bottoms.
Female Olympic athletes are pushing back at outdated uniform regulations and demanding athleticism be prioritised over aesthetics. Many have been pushing for uniform changes in the run-up to this year's Tokyo Games. The Norwegian beach handball team was fined for wearing shorts during their bronze medal match in the European Beach Handball Championships instead of the regulated bikini bottoms. Julie Aspelenberg was on that team and said they made the choice as a statement of inclusivity.
We want to make a change because we don't want the sport to exclude anyone. We wish it to be inclusive for diversity. There are several countries and regions that don't allow women to dress the way the rules state. We wish there to be focus on the sport and not the clothing.
American singer Pink also added her voice of support to the Norwegian team and said in a tweet she would be happy to help pay the fine. With the Tokyo Olympics in full swing, the German women's gymnastics team competed in red and white full bodysuits in their qualifications, instead of the regulated leotard. Their unitards were a combination of a leotard and leggings down to the ankles. Gymnast Sarah Voss says it was a decision to counter the sexualization of the sport and to promote women to wear what makes them feel comfortable.
We just want a free decision and everyone to be given the free possibility to wear what they want. It has nothing to do with performance, what team status one has, what league one competes in. The main thing is that you feel comfortable to compete.
Meanwhile, the official Olympic broadcaster said television coverage of the Games will focus only on athletes' performances and adopt a more gender-neutral approach to filming.
Apart from the fact that it's very possible that a woman who is playing beach handball or beach anything could be in a period and cannot wear a bikini. So, and some of them will still be in there and still will do their sports and participate.
Yes.
Nevertheless, so I think it's mortally wrong, mortally obscene, insane to actually tell these Norwegian team to actually pay a fine because they chose to wear shorts instead of bikinis. These people are not sexual, they're not sex symbols. And the girl who spoke now said, let's face the sports, not what we look like.
I don't understand
Really?
what they mean by gender neutral camera filming. We're talking about wear, athletes wear at the Olympics, and in general, sports everywhere. I've never really understood, and there are many sports that I don't watch because of the overly sexualized nature of the uniforms. And they're very right. There's so many countries around the world that would not send females to participate in sporting activities like beach volleyball because of the nature of the attire. So what I don't understand is what is the obsession at the governing bodies level? A group of men in a room decide that this is what the uniform should be, and they are stuck in some kind of 1950s notion. Because even in the 1950s, the notion was women should dress more
Moderately, yeah.
Yes. So why is it that in sport we want to basically strip them naked?
Well, in tennis now, Nick Kyrgios kick-started his Atlanta Open campaign in emphatic fashion with a straight-set victory over South Africa's Kevin Anderson. The entertaining Aussie decided to play the ATP event instead of the Olympics, which is on at the same time, as he refused to play in an empty stadium. Kyrgios put on a show for fans in attendance with a series of trick shots, including a between-the-legs serve, which fooled his opponents. Next up for the world number 58 is a tricky round of 16 tie against a third seed, Cameron Norrie. They call him the Australian showman, Nick Kyrgios.
That was certainly a show.
Wow.
Even just that short highlight, I think it was so much more enjoyable than a lot of things I'm going to watch today. I'm surprised about the trick shot between the legs. I'm wondering if that's even legal, but it went through, so I guess it must be, which changes my whole perspective of
tennis.
how to
Yeah, I
play.
was wondering.
Yes, I'm going to be more creative with my own trick shots going forward.
Before we have little time on the show, but I have to do this before we go. Now, American double world champion and medal hopeful for America, Sam Kendricks, has been ruled out of the Tokyo Olympics after testing positive for COVID-19. The U.S. Olympic Committee said on Thursday. Now, U.S. track and field said that Kendricks and his close contacts were immediately notified and protocols were activated to isolate him. Kendricks won the world title in 2017 and 2019 and the Olympic bronze in Rio 2016. His battle with world record holder Mondo Duplantis of Sweden was expected to have been one of the highlights of the athletics program, which begins on Friday tomorrow.
I'll get on a plane here Monday, headed off for Tokyo, but I want to be fresh and feel like I've touched every avenue for really burning the engines hot, and I can really only do that by competing. And that's my cross to bear when it comes to competition. So when I go to Tokyo, I want to be well competed and well rested. So I'm going to take some good time off, maybe 2 or 3 days before I get on a plane. I want to be over rested and just finely honed instrument was what my coach always said. So hopefully we'll give Mondo Duplantis, the world record holder, a run for his money. But when it comes to the tools that I have at my disposal to try to go toe to toe with Mondo, I realize that they may be different than it was going towards world championships in the past. It's hard to play it straight up with the world record holder because it always seems like he's got that spade right up his sleeve. So in thinking that, I've got to really elevate the way I'm thinking. I got to jump against him more. I've got to learn to let loose at the higher bars. And I might have to contend with him, just like all of us, at a higher bar than the Olympics has ever seen before.
Everybody was waiting for Kendrick and Mondo's massive competition they have in the pole vault. Kendrick and Mondo, the world was waiting for them to, and then
I'm so sorry.
COVID-19 comes to play.
I'm so sorry for him. So sorry. Because I watched the video, him talking about taking his time.
This was the video before the Olympics,
Yeah.
talking about the competition with Mondo and how optimistic he is that he's going to beat him. And
all he wanted was a couple of days of rest to be in peak physical condition.
And face this guy.
And this is where we end up. You know, it's unfortunate that, the World Cup is next year. I say that even though I love the World Cup, but it's unfortunate because it means that this whole month couldn't have been delayed till next year because the entire world's attention would have been focused on that.
Mukhail, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. Join us same time tomorrow for the weekend edition. My name is Wale Scott. Like I always advise you at the end of every show, if not for anything, at least for your heart, do some sports.